everybody, coming at you with all my might. It's Smite. How you guys doing today? Today we're going out for a ride on my 2019 BMW S1000XR. So today I want to talk to you about how and why I got this BMW S1000XR. If you haven't seen the video of me test riding it, I said, oh yeah, I'm gonna get this. What ended up actually happening is my Zero, I traded in my Zero on this bike. But what happened is I got a recall notice. I was looking at a dealership, and the closest dealership is in Tyrone, Pennsylvania. The same dealership that I got my GS from. I decided to look at their used bikes. I sent a couple of the links to my dad, and he's like, oh yeah. So he ended up saying to my wife, oh, Levi's gonna trade in the bike. And it made me think, I'm like, you know what if I did trade in the bike? And the thing that built up to that is I really love the Zero, and I'll have to do a more detailed comparison on this bike and the Zero. I really love the Zero, but the thing about it was I kept riding harder, and when I rode harder, I got less range. I got to the point where 60 miles was about all I could get, because I was just riding it so hard from stop sign to stop sign, you know, full throttle, you know, up to the speed limit. But even when you're launching all the time, and then even when you're pushing it in corners, on the twisties, I could do 80 miles with my dad, but then I would go out with one of my friends and I would only be able to do, there's a lot of gravel here, I would go out with one of my friends and only be able to do 60, if less. So I ended up like darn near pushing the bike back a couple times. You know, I was like 4 miles away, there's a bunch of deer, 4 miles away from my house on 0%, not knowing if I was ever going to make it home. Well, or if I had to have someone pick me up, or if I was literally going to push it. Now you can argue the whole charger thing, but I've already been over that, how the lack of the chargers and the lack of time to charge. So all of that added up, and I seen this, and they wanted 17 grand for this bike. I actually purchased my Zero for like 13 grand from Arizona and had it shipped. When I had it shipped and all of the paperwork, it came out to around 15. So with the refunds that the state gave me and that the federal government gave me on taxes, it came about to 2 grand in refund. So it dropped my price back to the 13. So I was like, you know what, I'm gonna see how much they'll give me for a trade-in with my Zero against this bike. And I messaged him, and I sitting there thinking, and I'm like, you know what, if I have to put out 2 grand, I'm gonna buy that bike. Well, he ended up calling me and saying, hey, how you doing? I hear you're interested in this bike. This is what we could do. And I said, I don't want to put out that much money. It was close to 3 grand. And he's like, well, I said, I want to give you 2 grand. And that's it. Like, I want to give you 2 grand, sign you a check for $2,000 and walk away. Oh, okay, let me see. Yeah, well, I can't do that, man. He's like, I could do 2,500. I'm like, okay, that works out great. He's like, all right, I said, I'll put a deposit on it and I'll pick it up Monday. And he's like, all right, good deal. I'll send you the bill of sale. He sends me the bill of sale, and the bill of sale gets there, and I already put $500 down, so I needed $2,000. Well, the bill of sale says $2,400 is still owed. And I'm like, what? I look, and all the fees are there. And I'm like, well, that's not what I agreed to. That's not what he said. So I call him back the next day, and I was like, hey, you know, we said 2 grand, or we said 2,500. I said, I will use that. And he's like, oh yeah. I said, well, when I got the bill of sale, it says 2,400 still owed. I was only supposed to owe you 2 grand. And he's like, well, there's fees. I said, well, when we made the agreement, fees were not, I was with the fees. I said, I want to come in there, hand you 2 grand, and be done with it. He's like, oh, well, I'm gonna sit on your bike. That bike, I really should be listing that XR for more. I really should. And I'm like, do you want my money or not? And he's like, let me see. So the baseline was $1,300 they were giving me for my bike. He's like, I adjusted it so that we're giving you $13,400 for your bike, and you owe $1,940. And I'm like, okay, I'll be in Monday with a check. So I actually paid less than $2,500 on top of my Zero for this bike. But if you factor in the money I got back from the state, which was $2,000, I paid $500 to trade my bike. Now my bike, the Zero, I put 2,000 miles on the dot on my Zero. The tires, it was gonna need not new tires and probably another 1,000 miles because of how I rode it. So technically I rented the Zero for $500. $500, I didn't have it even a full year. This bike had 19,000 miles on it. You see from the test ride, I just love it. There's so much things about this bike that I love. It fits my needs so much better than the Zero did. But I really wish that I could have kept the Zero, but there was no room in my insurance budget, and there was no room in my garage. The funny thing about it is this is a 178 horsepower inline 4-cylinder with speeds capable of 150 miles an hour. The Zero had 105 horsepower and wouldn't go over 120. I'm paying $200 less a year for insurance on this bike because it's classified as an adventure bike rather than the naked the Zero was. And I mean, granted, this is 1 year older than the Zero. The Zero was a 2020. So I made out on insurance, and I got home and I did 100 miles and I just filled it up. I mean, I love the cost savings of the Zero. You know, it was great for commuting. But the problem I had too is as I started commuting in the rain, I started to do that just because it was saving me money. It was taking some of the enjoyment out because my urge to save money was bigger than my comfortability. And I'm like, oh, well, it's 20 cents to go to work on the Zero, and that's a high number. And it's $1 to go to work on my car. So I would always take the Zero. So now I can keep up with the big boys. This is an amazing sport touring bike, and now it's given me the chance to reevaluate my bike collection. I'm actually selling my GS. I'm going to build a smaller dual sport because this takes care of the big adventure bike, quote unquote. I'm not going to be doing any off-road with this bike whatsoever. But for touring, it's just phenomenal. You get on, it has cruise control. My dad has cruise control and it's amazing. So he would sit there, he just sets cruise control and away you go. Well, on the GS, you're just sitting there, and the GS is a great motorcycle all around. But it was pretty buzzy on the highway. You would get up on the highway and it would just vibrate because it's a parallel twin and the pistons went up and down the same time. That's just how those motors are built. So there's a little jumping in the motor and it just creates vibration. A bulletproof motor just vibrating. So this is, I would say this is a lot more comfortable than my GS, my F800 GS, not a 1200. So I don't need the touring aspect into my dual sport. So it gives me an opportunity to downsize. Because the fact of the matter is I was running into issues with my GS as well, because all my friends have smaller bikes and they're getting better with their smaller bikes to the point where it's hard to keep up with some of them on my GS. I'm good, but not that good. So I need to downsize, and that will increase my skill level because I'm not dealing with a 400+ pound motorcycle. Instead, I want to look around, 300 to upper 200. So that's the opportunity that it gives me, and this all falls back on my job opportunity and how that all worked out for me through much pain and suffering. But there was a light at the end of the tunnel, and I'm really happy about that light. So that's the story on my 2019 BMW S1000XR. I love the bike, I love the motor, it sounds amazing. and that's how I got it. I will be doing separate videos on comparing this to the Zero and what I love about this, but I just wanted to get a ballpark out there. So thank you so much for watching. If you really enjoyed the video, make sure you hit the like button for the YouTube algorithm. Also, it lets me know if you actually like the video. I hope you come back next time. Thank you so much for watching. Have a nice day, and God bless.